Well, it's time now for our focus segment. Unless you lived on planet Mars, you would have probably heard at least once of the Copenhagen Climate Conference in the last few weeks. Delegations from 192 countries have descended on the Danish capital for 2 weeks of talks aimed at paving the way for a new global agreement to constrain greenhouse gas emissions and curb human-induced climate change. Now, with grim warnings of the apocalyptic dangers for mankind, urgency is the key word. And in an unprecedented display of uniformity, 56 newspapers in 45 countries carried the same editorial this Monday, urging politicians to forget their differences and work together to forge an agreement. But not everyone is convinced, it seems. Some commentators are skeptical about the fact that rising greenhouse gas emissions are the cause of modern-day warming, or they say the world is not actually getting warmer. And these skeptics have been rallied by a recent scandal, hacked emails at a climate research institute in London that suggests that climate change doesn't have a human cause. Kate Williams has the story.
It's already being called Climategate. Over 1,000 emails sent by researchers at the University of East Anglia were leaked onto the internet last month. Many of them seem to show the scientific community has been fiddling climate-related data to support their global warming theories. The leak puts the UN-backed Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, in an awkward position. Skeptics of global warming are thrilled that their arguments may now be heard and are holding a counter-summit in Copenhagen.
There is no anthropogenic global warming problem, and that therefore the Copenhagen conference is unnecessary, and the treaty, which is already in draft, proposing a world government with draconian powers over the financial affairs of the West, is dangerous and wrong.
The British government has condemned what they say is an attempt to destabilise and undermine the Copenhagen Climate Change Conference.
I think there's still also a group of anti-change, anti-science, anti-reform, almost flat earth opponents of climate change. And I think over the next days, when we look at the scientific evidence, when we see the meteorological evidence, then people will be convinced that it's absolutely essential that we take this historic step of getting the first ever world climate change deal at Copenhagen.
The controversy is also a source of concern for the organisers of the Copenhagen summit. In an attempt to win back public opinion, the president of the IPCC promised the UN would lead an inquiry and reiterated his support for the scientific community.
The recent incident of stealing the emails of scientists shows that some would go to the extent of carrying out illegal acts, perhaps in an attempt to discredit the IPCC. But the panel has a record of transparent and objective assessment stretching over 21 years, performed by tens of thousands of dedicated scientists.
Skepticism of global warming is increasing in many countries, some of which are the largest polluters. According to one recent survey, fewer than half of British people believe climate change is down to human activity. But the controversy has caught particular attention in the United States. Many Republicans in Congress are using this so-called Climategate for their own ends. They're trying to sabotage a vote in the Senate that could introduce a law to fight global warming.
Climate change, hype or real crisis? That's what we're discussing on Focus tonight. And my guest is Michel Petit, president of France's Sciences Academy Environment Committee. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Petit. First off, what do you think of this whole Climategate scandal? Is it realistic to think that scientists are coming up with the wrong data?
No, it's really very minor things. In the thousands of emails they have hacked, they were able to find 2 or 3 sentences. I assume that they found no more than that because that's always the same, which are repeatedly cited. And those sentences may be interpreted as suggesting that some data have been more or less twisted to fit the general scheme of warming. But even if it would be true, it's only a very minor part of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it concerned just one team, the Phil Jones team. And actually 8 other teams have performed reconstitution of the past history of the average Earth temperature. And they found exactly the same result. So, and moreover, the glaciers are melting everywhere, sea ice is melting, and there is many other signs of really the existence of a warming.
So, but the skeptics say that the evidence that the Earth's temperature is getting warmer is unclear. So what would you say then to them? What would you answer to them? And what is the real cause then of climate change?
Everyone knows that from one year to the next one, the temperature can be very different. Mm-hmm. And you have natural fluctuations which have always existed and which will continue to exist. But to have a general tendency, you are forced to make average over long periods, typically 30 years. So interpreting the fact that at a time of very strong El Nino phenomenon, we had a maximum of temperature in 98, and that after that we have not yet reached the same level, does not prove anything in terms of the long-term tendency.
Do you think this is likely, this scandal that we've heard of, is it likely to influence the outcome of Copenhagen?
I don't think so, really. It's not. There's nothing serious in that.
Okay. And so then, the skeptics also coming back to this whole controversy, because I think it's important to explain a little bit why these people are so skeptical. They also say that that climate is affected by the sun, which people who are not skeptic agree with also.
Certainly the sun plays a role, and it has been taken into account in all the IPCC studies. And we compare the influence of the sun with the influence of the change in the composition of the atmosphere. Okay. And we conclude that 90% of the phenomenon is due to CO2 mainly, and the other greenhouse gases, and that only maybe 10, maybe less percent or less is due to the sun fluctuation.
So my question then is, I guess this would be the overall last question. Will a Copenhagen deal, will a deal in 2 weeks change anything? Will it change, will it solve the climate change issue?
Well, first, I don't know what will be the decision. Right. If the decisions are positive, it would be excellent.
What would be a positive decision?
Well, a certain number of commitments. Mm-hmm. But now the question after that is how the commitment will be fulfilled. Will people respect their commitment? Will they do actually what they have promised to do? That's another question. Now, if Copenhagen would not be a success, after COP15, we will have COP16. And as the climate change is with us for decades, at some stage, mankind will be forced to take actions to fight against climate warming. The sooner the better, and I hope the sooner possible is Copenhagen, and I hope it will be in Copenhagen. But if not, it will be later, but it will happen anyway.
All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Michel Petit, President of France's Sciences Academy Environment Committee. Thank you so much for being our guest on Focus tonight. Well, more news coming up very shortly here on France 24. I hope you do stay with us.